Welcome to my channel. Subscribe and enjoy daily stories about cheating, revenge, and relationship advice. I never imagined I'd be back in the workforce after 16 years of marriage and raising 2 kids. Standing in front of the tall glass building that was my new workplace, I felt a strange mix of nerves and excitement. My reflection in the glass doors showed a woman who, on the surface, looked put together, 40, yes, but confident in a navy blouse and crisp black skirt, my hair neatly styled for the occasion. Inside, however, I was a mess. "Here goes nothing," I muttered to myself as I pushed through the doors and stepped into the bright, buzzing lobby. The company, Next Tech Solutions, was a fast-growing tech firm, and it showed. Everything gleamed: sleek furniture, modern lighting, and large digital screens displaying the latest updates on the company's achievements. It all felt a bit overwhelming, like I'd stepped into a world that had sped on without me while I was busy with diapers, PTA meetings, and science fairs. "Laura, right?" A young woman with short, choppy hair and glasses approached me with a warm smile. "I'm Amy, your manager. Great to finally meet you in person." "Hi, Amy, it's great to meet you too," I replied, grateful for the warm welcome. "Come on, let me show you around." Amy's energy was infectious. She led me through the open office space, pointing out the different departments, the snack bar, the standing desks, everything that screamed new age workplace. I couldn't help but feel a little out of place. As we walked, Amy chatted about the company culture and how they valued collaboration and creativity. "You'll love it here," she said. "We're all about making sure everyone has a voice." I smiled politely, though I wasn't quite sure if I was ready to find my voice in this new world just yet. After being at home for so long, the idea of collaboration felt distant, like something I'd left behind in another life. Finally, Amy stopped at a cluster of desks where 3 people were huddled together, clearly engrossed in conversation. "Guys, this is Laura, our new marketing lead," Amy announced. The group turned to greet me. There was Matt, the IT guy with a scruffy beard and a sarcastic smile, Claire, a bubbly, ambitious project manager in her mid-20s, and Sabrina, the social media strategist who radiated positivity like a human sunbeam. "Welcome aboard, Laura," Sabrina said, standing up to shake my hand. "We're really excited to have you. I heard you've got some serious experience under your belt." "Well, it's been a while, but I'm excited to jump back in," I said, hoping I didn't sound as nervous as I felt. "So, 16 years off, huh?" Matt chimed in, leaning back in his chair. "How was that?" "Interesting, to say the least," I said with a chuckle. "It's a bit of an adjustment coming back, but I've missed the hustle." "I bet," Claire added. "Kids, right? I can't even imagine juggling that and a job." "Yeah, 2 kids. They're older now, so it's easier, but it definitely kept me busy," I said. "Bet you didn't miss office drama," Matt said with a smirk, earning a playful punch from Claire. I laughed. Honestly, I didn't. But I'm sure I'll catch up. We all chatted a bit more, and as the conversation turned to weekend plans and office gossip, I felt the nervousness start to lift. These were good people, easy to talk to, and despite the difference in our life stages, they seemed welcoming. Later, at lunch, we gathered in the sleek break room, with its communal tables and a fridge stocked with healthy snacks. The conversation flowed naturally, and before long, Sabrina leaned in, curiosity sparkling in her eyes. "So, tell us," she began, "how do you juggle it all? I mean, 16 years off for family, that's huge. And you're still married?" "Yes, I am," I replied, taking a sip of my coffee. 16 years with Tom. "That's impressive," Claire said, her voice genuinely admiring. "It's rare these days." I smiled at that, the thought of Tom popping into my mind. He's a great guy. We met in college. He was shy at first, but once I got to know him, he became my rock. I couldn't have done any of this without him. Sabrina's eyes widened slightly. "Shy? Doesn't sound like most husbands I know." I laughed softly. "Yeah, he's not the loud, take charge type, but that's what I've always loved about him. He's confident in a quiet way. And he's always been there when things got tough. Supportive husband, happy marriage, 2 kids, what's your secret? Matt quipped, raising an eyebrow. I shrugged, trying to think of an answer. I think it's just that we balance each other out. I'm more of the dreamer, and he's the steady one. We've had our share of ups and downs, but we always seem to find our way back to each other. You guys must be a great team, Claire said, genuinely impressed. I can't imagine doing it all. Do you ever feel like you're missing out on anything? The question caught me off guard, but I smiled and shook my head. No, I don't think so. Life with Tom is stable. Stable? Sabrina raised an eyebrow. That doesn't exactly sound exciting. I paused, wondering if I should elaborate. Was stable all I wanted? I could feel a flicker of doubt rise within me, but I pushed it down. It's good, I said, offering them a smile. It's not always fireworks, but it's real, you know. The table fell quiet for a moment before Amy returned, interrupting the lull. Sorry to steal Laura away, but we've got a meeting with the marketing team. I stood up, grateful for the escape, but as we walked away, Sabrina's question lingered in the back of my mind. Stable. Was that really all I wanted? Wasn't stable good? Why did it suddenly feel like it wasn't enough? As I sat down in the meeting room, nodding along to introductions and brainstorming ideas, I found myself thinking back to my early days with Tom. The excitement, the adventure of starting a life together. And now, 16 years later, everything was stable. I didn't know why, but for the first time in years, I wondered if stable was all there was. The gentle hum of the ceiling fan was the only sound in our bedroom as I lay beside Tom, who was already fast asleep. The room was dimly lit by the soft glow of a bedside lamp, casting long shadows across the walls. I stared at the ceiling, my mind drifting back through the years, retracing the path of our relationship from the early days to the present. Tom had always been the quiet, dependable type. I remembered meeting him in college. He was in the back row of our history class, always with a book in hand. While the other students were busy chatting and socializing, Tom was absorbed in his notes, his shy demeanor almost endearing. One evening, after a particularly grueling exam, I had struck up a conversation with him in the library. You look like you've been here forever, I teased, noting the stack of books beside him. He looked up, slightly startled but with a sheepish smile. Yeah, I guess I have. Just trying to stay on top of things. It was that smile that won me over. We began talking more, and what started as casual conversations about history turned into late-night study sessions, then dates, and eventually, a lifetime together. As we built our life, Tom's steady presence was a constant source of support. I recalled the day we moved into our first house. The house was a fixer-upper, with peeling wallpaper and creaky floorboards. Tom was in his element, meticulously working on each project, his hands always busy, his focus unwavering. Are you sure we can afford this? I'd asked, eyeing the growing list of repairs. Tom had looked up from installing a new faucet, his face smeared with paint. It'll be worth it. Trust me, I do trust you, I said, but this place is a bit of a wreck. He smiled, his eyes twinkling with determination. That's what makes it ours. We'll make it beautiful, one step at a time, and we did. Slowly but surely, the house transformed from a rundown shell into a home. It was a labor of love, and through it all, Tom remained unflappable. The most vivid memory I had of our early days together was our honeymoon in Hawaii. We stayed in a small, secluded cottage on the Big Island, far from the bustling tourist spots. It was just the two of us, the ocean, and the mountains. Look at that view, I said, standing on the balcony of our cottage, the sun setting over the horizon. It's like we're the only people on Earth. Tom wrapped his arms around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder. That's exactly how it feels. Just us, and nothing else matters. He was right. Those days were filled with long walks on the beach, swimming in hidden coves, and intimate conversations under the stars. It was a time of pure joy and freedom, a time when everything felt possible. But now, looking back, I could see how our relationship had shifted. The excitement of our early years had given way to the routine of daily life. Our conversations had become about bills, school projects, and weekend plans. The spark of those early days was still there, but it felt like it had dimmed, overshadowed by the responsibilities of adulthood. One evening, while Tom was preparing dinner, his favorite, spaghetti with homemade sauce, I found myself reminiscing. "You know, I was thinking about our honeymoon today," I said, sitting at the kitchen island, watching him cook. Tom glanced over his shoulder, a smile tugging at his lips. "Hawaii. That was a great trip. I still remember how relaxed we were." "Yeah," I said, sighing softly. "I miss that feeling. It was so carefree." Tom's expression softened. "We can't go back to that exact moment, but we can create new memories. Maybe we should plan a weekend getaway or something." I nodded, appreciating the thought. "That sounds nice. I guess I've just been feeling a little nostalgic, I suppose." "Things change," Tom said, turning to face me, his eyes steady. "But that doesn't mean we can't find new ways to enjoy life. It's just different now." He was right. Life was different. Our routines had settled into a comfortable pattern, but that didn't mean the love wasn't there. It was just expressed in different ways, through the small gestures, the everyday support, and the quiet companionship. Later that night, as we lay in bed, Tom reached over and took my hand in his. "You okay?" he asked, his voice gentle. "I'm okay," I replied, squeezing his hand. "I've been thinking a lot about us and how things have changed." Tom turned to me, his expression thoughtful. "Change is part of life. It's not always easy, but we've been through a lot together. We've built something solid." "I know," I said, leaning in to kiss him. "And I wouldn't trade what we have for anything." Tom smiled, his eyes warm and understanding. "Me neither." As I drifted off to sleep beside him, I realized that while our relationship had evolved, it wasn't any less meaningful. The stability and routine we had built were the foundation of our life together, and though it wasn't always exciting, it was real. And sometimes, that was enough. The bachelorette party for Emily, a friend from work, was in full swing by the time I arrived. The venue was a lively downtown bar with dim lighting, a dance floor pulsating with the latest hits, and a crowd of excited women celebrating the bride-to-be. The atmosphere was charged with a kind of frenetic energy that I hadn't experienced in years. "Laura. You made it." Sabrina's voice cut through the noise as she spotted me at the entrance. She was already tipsy, her cheeks flushed, a big grin plastered on her face. "Hey, Sabrina." I called back, weaving through the crowd. "Thanks for the invite." "You're welcome," she shouted over the music. "Come on, join us. We're doing shots." I laughed, feeling a bit out of place but excited to join in. The group was gathered around a large table laden with drinks and snacks. I spotted Claire and a few other colleagues I recognized, their faces lit with enthusiasm. "Laura!" Claire exclaimed, pulling me into a hug. "So glad you're here. We were just about to play some games." As the night went on, the drinks flowed freely, and the games became progressively wilder. We played Never Have I Ever, and though I was mostly a spectator, I couldn't help but be drawn into the camaraderie and laughter. At one point, Claire nudged me with a mischievous grin. "Laura, you've been married for how long now?" 16 years, I replied, smiling. "Wow, that's impressive," she said, taking a sip of her drink. "What's it like, being with the same person for so long?" I shrugged, feeling a bit defensive. "It's stable. We've built a life together, and it works. But don't you ever wonder what else is out there?" Claire pressed. "I mean, it's not like you're going to find out if you don't at least think about it." Her words struck a chord. "I don't know," I said, trying to sound nonchalant. "I love Tom. We have a good life. Claire's eyes twinkled with mischief. Come on, Laura. Don't tell me you don't miss that thrill of the unknown. I guess I'm just used to what we have, I replied, feeling a twinge of unease. As the night wore on, the energy in the room grew more electric. The music was louder, and people were dancing with abandon. I was starting to feel the effects of the alcohol, my inhibitions loosening as I danced with my colleagues. Later, as I was waiting for a drink at the bar, a man approached me. He was charming, with an easy smile and a confident demeanor. We'd exchanged a few glances earlier, but now he was standing close, his presence making my heart race slightly. Hey, Laura, he said, leaning in slightly. Having a good time? Yeah, it's been fun, I replied, trying to sound casual. It's been a while since I've been to something like this. You look like you're enjoying yourself, he said, his gaze lingering. Want to grab another drink, maybe somewhere quieter? I hesitated, looking back at the group of friends who were still dancing and laughing. A part of me wanted to say yes, to escape the noise and chaos for a moment. But another part of me was whispering caution. Sure, let's go, I heard myself say, the decision made before I could fully process it. We headed outside, where the cool night air was a welcome relief from the heat of the bar. The man led me to a nearby lounge area, and we sat down on a cushioned bench. The city lights twinkled in the distance, and for a moment, everything felt surreal. So, tell me about yourself, he said, leaning in with genuine interest. I started to talk, but my words felt disjointed, as if I were speaking through a fog. I was only half listening, my mind racing with thoughts of Tom and the life I was leaving behind, even if just for a moment. As the conversation flowed, I could feel the alcohol taking its toll. I wasn't fully present, and the thrill of the night seemed to blur the lines of my usual self-control. The man leaned in closer, his hand brushing against mine. You know, you're really something special. I'm glad we ended up talking. I felt a thrill of excitement, but just as quickly, a wave of guilt washed over me. What was I doing? Was this really what I wanted? I should go back, I said suddenly, standing up. I need to catch up with my friends. He looked up at me, a mix of disappointment and understanding in his eyes. All right, if that's what you want. I hope you have a great rest of the night. I nodded, forcing a smile, and made my way back to the bar. My mind was racing, my heart pounding in my chest. I rejoined my friends, trying to act normal, but inside, I was a whirlwind of confusion and regret. As the night continued, the fun and laughter seemed distant. I felt out of place, the earlier excitement now tainted by my brief detour. The questions Claire had posed earlier echoed in my mind, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. By the time the party was winding down, I was ready to go home. I gathered my things, exchanged hugs and goodbyes with my colleagues, and left the bar with a heavy heart. The night had been a blur of excitement and self-discovery, but as I walked to my car, I knew one thing for sure, I was still wrestling with the choices I had made and the path that lay ahead. The street outside the bar was quiet and cool, a stark contrast to the throbbing energy inside. The city lights cast a soft glow on the pavement as I stood by the curb, waiting for the man from earlier to return with another drink. The excitement of the night still buzzed through me, but a sense of unease had begun to settle in. As he reappeared with 2 fresh drinks, he offered one to me. Here you go, he said, his smile genuine but slightly hesitant. Thanks, I said, taking the drink. I glanced back at the bar, where my friends were still enjoying themselves, their laughter faint but present. So, he began, taking a sip of his own drink, what's your story? You seem like you've got a lot going on. I took a sip of mine, feeling the alcohol's warmth spread through me. It's just been a long time since I've been out like this. I'm married. Have been for 16 years. 16 years. He raised an eyebrow, visibly impressed. That's pretty rare these days. You must have some interesting stories. I laughed softly, though it felt a bit forced. It's not always as exciting as it sounds. It's a lot of routine, really. But we make it work. He leaned in a bit closer, his eyes scanning my face with an intensity that made me both intrigued and uneasy. Sometimes, people need a break from their routines. A chance to feel something different, you know. I looked away, trying to steady my thoughts. The man's words echoed Claire's earlier comments about missing out on something. The thrill of the unknown, the excitement of a new experience, it all seemed so tempting in the moment. I suppose, I said, my voice faltering. But I'm not sure if this is what I need. He noticed my hesitation and his expression softened. Hey, I don't want to push you into anything. I just thought we could have a drink and chat. If that's not what you're looking for, I understand. His understanding tone made me pause. For a moment, I felt a pang of guilt mixed with confusion. Was I really considering something like this? Was the excitement worth the risk? Look, I appreciate your company, I said, trying to find the right words. But I should probably head back to my friends. He nodded, his smile a little sadder now. All right, if that's what you want. I hope you have a good rest of the night. I stood up, feeling a mix of relief and disappointment. Thanks for understanding. I'm sorry if I led you on. No worries, he said, standing as well. Sometimes, the timing just isn't right. As we walked back towards the bar, I could feel the weight of my choices settling heavily on my shoulders. The night had been filled with moments of excitement and self-reflection, but I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that I had been chasing something fleeting, something that might never fulfill me the way I hoped. When I reached the bar, my friends were still there, their laughter a comforting reminder of the life I was returning to. I rejoined them, trying to reintegrate myself into the group's energy. Sabrina and Claire were deep in conversation about the latest gossip, and I found myself slipping back into the familiar rhythm of their chatter. But the night had shifted something inside me. As the evening wore on and the group began to disperse, I was left alone with my thoughts. I realized that while the thrill of the encounter had been tempting, it had also highlighted my internal conflict, a longing for excitement against the backdrop of a stable but perhaps mundane life. When I finally said my goodbyes and stepped out into the cool night air, I felt a mix of relief and introspection. The encounter had been a moment of recklessness, a brief escape from routine, but it had also forced me to confront the reality of my choices and the life I had built with Tom. As I drove home, the city lights blurred past, and I found myself reflecting on what I truly wanted. The excitement of the night had been intoxicating, but as I pulled into the driveway and saw the familiar silhouette of our house, I knew that the real journey lay in understanding my own desires and navigating the path forward with honesty and clarity. The encounter with the man had been a catalyst, a moment of clarity amidst the chaos. And as I walked into the quiet of my home, I knew that I had to face the choices ahead with a newfound sense of self-awareness and resolve.